Hello, guys and gals and Sharks fans in between. It's been 82 games. We are done. You know what? I have three people that will tell you what it is.
Staggering production values. Staggering.
But, I mean, it kind of fits in, right?
Okay, not get the crap.
Welcome to Teal Therapy, otherwise known as Pucknology After Dark, following a
Brought by Budweiser.
presented by whatever beer Chelena and AJ are drinking, following a 4-1 we didn't give a damn effort.
Ooh. Very nice. I do not have a beer in hand right now, actually.
That's too bad.
Work on that later.
I should have one, to be honest. I am Eric, otherwise known as Puckguy14, also known as Not Brody Brazil, because technically this is your Sharks post-game live. So forgive us. Brody's doing baseball. Cozemore's got the day off. So, oh my goodness, people. And well, yeah, you're getting the AOL jokes on Twitter. Yeah, you're funny. All right. If you want to be a part of the show, use the hashtag Pucknology After Dark, or you can tweet us at PuckGuy14, at AJ_strong, at Pucknology. I'm sure Shelena should be able to get tweets if she gets them. Gentry Alexander is a healthy scratch in the ballpark, and whereabouts unknown for Chris JWS, but they're here in spirit. Unlike the effort tonight. Let's start with you, AJ, on this season finale where the Sharks will have lost more games than they have won for the first time since 99-2000.
Oh, today's game was the perfect microcosm, the perfect example of everything wrong with the Sharks this entire season. Again, and against the Kings, no less. But again, they get the lead early and can't maintain it. The story for so many games this season, and it's hard to stay luck on the first goal. Could have went either way. But then Wingles tips, deflects the second goal, and I don't know what the hell the defense was doing on the third one. I mean, they let Gabrick just walk right in. Dylan had his back to him on the doorstep. I mean, this defense is, and John Scott on defense today are like you can't troll us any harder at this point. And then John Scott on defense, it's just. You've got to be kidding me. There needs to be wholesale changes this year on defense. And I was looking up the numbers. I'm sorry to go so long, but it's the end of the season. But I was looking up the numbers. You know that the Sharks are, I think, one of, I want to say, about 7 or 8 teams that are spending less than $13 million on defense this season. At least on for the top 4. You look at Pittsburgh, you look at LA, you look at Chicago, all of those teams are all, for their top 4 defenders, are all upwards of about $20 million. The Sharks, 12. And it just goes to show you that they're the D that they are paying for, they aren't getting the value. Braun and Vlasic, yes. Move Burns back to forward. Everybody else, you're gone. We're getting new people in here. This is just abhorrent. So
on that note, I don't know if you guys heard it during the broadcast, and I've been trying to look it up because I don't see it reported anywhere yet. Randy said during the broadcast that somebody talked to Wilson earlier, asking about possibly moving Brent Burns back up to forward. And
yeah, I heard that.
And the talk ever since last summer has always been, that is not in our plan. Burns is staying on the blue line.
Right.
reportedly his response was, "We'll look at that during the off season." So not to get anybody's hopes up, but
Yeah, but for me, I think I look at that as spin, and I'm going. So in other words, if I'm not here next season, the other general manager could, or could hire a coach that puts him back and forward. Who knows?
there are going to be a lot of changes made this offseason. And I mean, especially with how whether or not they won or lost this game, there are going to be a lot of changes. But this game completely epitomized not just a Sharks losing to the Kings type of game, but getting that first goal and then giving it up, and then not just the defense being bad, but I think they only had like 2 shots on goal during like a big stretch of that second frame.
Mm-hmm.
They need a lot of work. I mean, and I get that, and I get that they have a lot of guys that are out hurt, or I know Justin Braun was sick, but there's no excuse for not tooling with their defense now that the season's over.
Well, and you lose Vlasic and Braun. I mean, how? And you've got Scott playing D. It's, yeah, okay, there's injuries. Everybody gets injuries, but it just highlighted the staggeringly bad depth that the Sharks have.
Yeah, I mean, it's just over and over again. They never improved the team from last year, which was a great. Let's put it this way: they were 111 points last year, and you let go of Havlat, which we all knew that was totally doable and fine. You let go of Boyle, didn't replace him with anybody of strong importance. You replaced Brad Stewart, who I guess we're essentially targeting as the guy who Doug Wilson was saying, we don't want people to just live here, we want them to play here, to paraphrase his quote. And they replaced them with Burns, essentially Mirko Mueller, and you kept Scott Hannon around, and he played a bigger role. I mean, you get what you pay for when you are putting him up there. However, so $13 million you said for the defense.
Yeah, well, for the top 4.
Or for the top 4. Well, the problem is that you also have a bottom 6 that you still need to come out, and we're still looking. I mean, we got a little bit better on secondary scoring this year, but again,
that came too late. And if you looked at the numbers, I think our 5-on-5 scoring last season was 7th in the league. This year it's 24th. So, I mean, there's been a huge and where does that usually start is having that defenseman that is the puck mover, the guy who can break it out, the Dan Boyle type that the Sharks do not have. Brent Burns, not that guy. Maybe Braun, you try to develop him into that, but Vlasic, not that guy. They just don't have that guy, and they've had 10 years to find that guy and draft him, and they haven't been able to do it.
I think they were trying to tool Braun into that guy, but he had even before he got hurt. Once he was split up from Vlasic, he started not looking as sharp this season as he did in the previous season. Because I think they were looking at, to him to pick up some of the slack with both Boyle and Stewart being gone. But
yeah, Braun started off really bad this season.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, it was when they split him and Vlasic up, to give Burns somebody else to play with. That was kind of when you saw him taper and started making mistakes. And
Braun's getting a fat pay raise next season.
Yeah.
Dude better earn it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's depressing. It's sad. It's like, now, what happens to this team? I mean, and with today as well, it's April 11th, and we're still in the shadows of what happened on April 30th of last year, 346 days ago, and it's still haunting us to this day. because we didn't do anything in the off season. We didn't do much to anything to improve the team during the season, and the play showed for it, and now we're here, sitting at 39 wins and sitting on the outside looking in.
I'm waiting for those wholesale changes, and then that brings us back to how do you make wholesale changes if you keep giving guys no move clauses? That was it really worth it now that your hands are tied? What was it going to cost you to sign Thornton and Marlowe to extensions without no move clauses? Well, each one gets an extra mil 0.5. Well, you're 10 mil under the cap. You could have afforded that, and it frees you up for moves. So,
right.
If Wilson ever hands out a no move clause again, he needs to be taken out on top of the tank and executed. I mean, no more no move clauses.
Well, the question is, and we'll touch up on it a little later when we play a game with you guys, as to who's going. Well, you know what? Why don't we just get into it, because the season's over. We really don't want to talk about this depressing 4-1 Sharks loss. Let's just get right to it. All right. So, between AJ and Shelena, we have a series of questions I want to ask you. And if you don't know the answer, too bad. All right. Question number 1. The percentage that Todd McClellan will be coaching this team on opening night. Shelena, I'll have you go first.
Oh, golly. I'd say there's maybe, go with maybe a 35% chance that he's coaching this team come opening night. It's been kind of in discussion, since the beginning of this season, even with 1 year left on his contract. It's looking a little more clear that he might be on his way out.
AJ, your thoughts on?
I'm going to choose the other end of the spectrum. I'm going to say 99%.
So you think he's done?
No, I think he is the coach next season.
You think he is the coach?
I think 99% because, and the whole reason being, the Sharks clearly don't seem to enjoy spending money anymore. You look at where their caps, there's clearly an internal cap happening. But McClellan is, first off, McClellan's already paid for next season. He's got his contract, so why fire him, eat that cash or whatever to bring in somebody else? And who is going to be any better at this point? I don't think the problem is McClellan. The only issue is I believe that McClellan could very well be scapegoated for Wilson's screw-ups, but I don't think this is to me, this is not McClellan's fault, really. This is, like we've discussed many a times, you can't, buy, you can't give somebody a piece of turkey and an apple and expect them to give you filet mignon back. And to put this on McClellan, I think would be incorrect. But as I said, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he's got another year left on his deal. And who knows, as we've heard from Wilson so many times, it's all part of the plan.
All right.
Well, I'm not saying that he won't be back next season because I think he's the problem. The exact opposite. I do not think he's the problem, and I would like to see him back next season. I think it's less likely it's going to happen, especially in it just the whole concept of McClellan being that scapegoat for. Now, I also don't think that Wilson's job is 100% secure either, but
which
more so than that.
Which brings me to the next question. The percentage that Doug Wilson is the general manager by the NHL draft. AJ, I'll let you go first.
110%. As Wilson, That's the whole thing. I just can't see Wilson going anywhere when you have an absentee landlord as your owner. You know, the guy's just chilling in Germany. He's only allowed to be in this country, what, like 2.5 months out of the year by, legally. So I think that Wilson has Platner snowed and has got him bought into whatever this silly little plan is. So far, it sounds like the plan is to just save money and get by, But, I think Wilson's here by the draft. I think he's the GM next October, 100%.
Sharina?
I'm going with 100 as well. If something were to happen, it wouldn't happen by draft time. He'll still be there when the draft comes around.
I'm kind of with you guys. I think many fans like us will figure out.
Oh my!
Sorry. Apparently, someone was stopped behind me.
Okay. I think Doug's going to stick around. I think Todd, is 50-50 right now, depending on who comes back. Chester Chivo, thank you. You brought up two of the questions I was just going to bring up. So, with that, the next question. Which was the worst season in Sharks history? Last year making the playoffs and reaching Game 7 but getting reverse sweep, not making the playoffs, or the 1992-93 season where we lost 71 games?
Ooh.
Can I pick secret option D?
Where they're all bad and they're right?
No. Because I won't even talk about the first two seasons. There was no expectations. It was a different time in the NHL when expansion was happening. So I wouldn't even entertain that. No, mine would be secret option D. Any time under the Al Sims era, any season under Al Sims, I would think is the worst of all.
Really?
Yeah. No. What's worse, this or last year? No, of course. Last season is obviously the worst. You made history, and all the wrong reasons. You went up 3-0 and couldn't spit the bit 4 games in a row, 2 of them in your own barn. The fact that you blew that, that's until I can't think of something else that would be worse than that. This is what the Sharks will be known for last season until they win a cup.
Well, are we talking about last season, the full season, or just last playoffs?
Overall, I think the whole season, but I'm kind of in the agreement where the regular season kind of gets thrown out the window because you got reverse swept by your rival, who ended up being the Stanley Cup champion.
No, I'm looking at it that the entire season and the playoffs, because they looked really good last year for a good amount of time. Yeah, they had their times where they shit the bed. Every team does. But it seems like they were able to turn things around when they needed to. And you had the guys like Boyle and Stewart, guys in the back end that were the veterans that could be counted on. You just didn't have that this year. I don't know. I look at it, the whole thing in a nutshell, between full length and then what did you do with that in the playoffs. It's almost as bad, I want to say, as 2009 with winning the President's Trophy and then getting knocked out by the 8th seed in Anaheim and getting knocked out handedly.
Yeah, I mean, you could go with that too. All right, this will lead to our final question, and for that, I will bring back my Regis voice.
No, for fuck's sake.
From Just Achievo, who is more likely to be traded? A. Joe Thornton. B. Patrick Marleau. C. Joe Pavelski. Or D. Logan Couture. Shalena, go first.
Oh gosh, I was kind of afraid of this question.
Would you like to phone a friend?
I think you can knock Thornton out of there. I don't think he's going anywhere. I genuinely do not think he's going anywhere. The other three, I know it's what right at the trade deadline. The word was that Marlowe had not been asked to waive his no trade clause. But you have to kind of wonder if maybe he wants out. He I mean, even outside of having a really, really rough season, his head was not in the game in the entire time down the stretch. He looked like he was ready to go. I can see the Sharks trading either Pavelski or Couture, to ignite something. While I don't like that, it's not heavily unlikely.
AJ.
Kind of agree with most of that. Yeah, I don't think Thornton's going anywhere because I think he's got like a point to prove. Pavelski, I would have said 2-3 seasons ago, there's no way in hell that Pavelski's going anywhere. Now, I think it depends on what the return would be. Now that he's over 30, but clearly, but then you also have to weigh it that he's clearly the leader in the room. So it's and I would imagine will be come October will be wearing the C.
That's kind of what makes that question so difficult. I think I even think if we had this talk end of last season, I think I would have been like, oh no, it's more likely that he'll be out the door. And give him credit for kind of stepping in and being. I think one of my colleagues called him, the de facto captain, and really trying to take over a room when everything's so helter skelter. But
how many times have you seen the video of? There's been a couple times where you look at the video of Pavelski standing up and Thornton. I mean, even in the when Pavelski on Fan Appreciation Night had his little speech, you see Thornton on the bench is just kind of like, just not engaged. Looks like he's like you could care less or could not care less. And in the Epic series, you can see it when Pavelski's kind of barking at the guys.
When they're in the background, when they're sitting in the background of the shot, yeah.
And Marlowe's just getting a drink and yeah, I have whatever. Couture, I don't think is going anywhere. No, it's definitely who is most likely to be traded in that list. I would say Pavelski, just based on age and contract.
Just overall trade value.
Yeah, exactly. Who should be traded on that list? Marlowe, without question.
Yeah. To me, I can't see any of the four going, which was going to cause a major uproar because here you are, basically. You're not trading any big name players. You're not making major big changes. What are they going to trade Burns away? And after all that he's been,
well, doesn't Burns have a no trade clause too?
I believe he does, but it's I think it's a limited one. I think it's one of those where Doug can go up to him and say, okay, if you want to go somewhere, tell me where you want to go, and then if we have it, I'll let you know about it. Something in the lines of that. Here's the thing. If you're not going to fire DW, if you're not going to fire Todd McClellan, if you're not going to trade away trade away the two guys who have the no movement clauses, and the two the youngsters that you're molding your team around,
then what the hell is going to change from this season till next season?
Right. And that's the big problem, is what's going to change around. I just don't know. Can they get better? Sure. Can they go after free agents? You saw on NBC's broadcast today, there really isn't much out there in free agency this offseason.
There's a couple names I would be interested in.
Mike Green, Paul Martin, Andre Mazzaros. Mazzaros has had a decent year, but he's been in Buffalo.
No, I like the idea of Franzen and Sekera.
I mean, you could maybe get him on a decent level. It would be an upgrade over retire fired Scott Hannon. Do you make a move on Devin Dubnyk? Uh, and that's getting into. I mean, we've talked about the forwards and defense so much. Now we're getting into the goaltending situation where Stalock has always been the guy that has looked like he will be the guy down the road. He had, I mean, they were saying, well, he's going to be the guy coming in and all this stuff. He only played in 22 games, so he played a quarter of the year. Nemo, when it was supposed to be a supposed tandem, Nemo ends up playing 3/4 of the year. Stalock finishes with an 8-9-2 with a 902 save percentage. He had 2 shutouts. Niemi has 31 wins, 5 shutouts, a 914 save percentage. I mean, decent numbers, but the question is that goaltending is also at a premium. The Sharks tried to do a tandem before they were able to land Niemi out of nowhere.
It's as long as this defense remains suspect. 1996 Patrick Waugh could be in the net for us, and it still would not make a difference. You could have Brodeur, Patrick Waugh, I mean, on their best days together, and it's still not going to make that big of a difference. I think it's a case of Stalock is more than serviceable to go for a season if they take the money that they're not going to be paying Niemi, if they make the moves that you're going to make, for God's sakes, but address this awful defense. I mean, how can you not when essentially you have 2 defensemen, Vlasic and Braun? That's it. Really, Mueller should not have been up here this year. Burns should be at forward. Irwin is a 6 guy at best, and it depends on the situation that you're playing in. He's the guy that you want to help you out on your second power play, but he's a 6 guy. You don't want Hannon. I'm sorry. I'm just not a Dylan guy. Fadoon, 5-6 guy. Stollery kind of remains to be seen, but at least Fadoon and Stollery together are making the same as Brendan Dillon. So you take some of that cash, you make some moves, and just fix this god-awful defense before you start worrying about if Stalock or Grosnick are ready. You know what? Niemi, we had a good run with you, bro, but it's time to move on.
Well, and kind of going back to Stalock and how his numbers weren't as great this season. So, I mean, if you rewatch, there were a lot of defensive mistakes in front of him. I mean, not that he didn't let soft goals in, just like Niemi did, but even if you look at LA's first goal tonight, they need so much more. As important as goaltending is, they really need to focus on beefing up that defense. They like AJ just said, they don't have 3-4 defensemen, and that's hurt them the entire season.
Yeah.
And a question that is kind of going back and forth on Twitter. One of the people that I follow on Twitter, we go back and forth once in a while. James says, if you think McClellan is the problem with the Sharks, you're wrong. Just damn wrong. And I agree with that. But Eric Landy, one of our guys, says, well, how about the debacle of 2009 against Anaheim? Or how about the mediocre penalty kill? Or not moving Pavelski back to center? Or playing Scott so often? And, well, first off, if someone's going to sign a player, if Doug Wilson's going to sign a player, you're going to bet that at some point he's going to have to be played, whether we wanted to or not. That is a good question, though, about not moving Pavelski back to center, the third line, to balance it out, especially once you got rid of Shepherd, so Hurdle could do that, which has worked out swimmingly. Do you think that the Sharks make the playoffs this year if Burns is still at forward and if Pavelski is centering the third line?
Because their defense is, there's still holes in their defense, though. Their defense is still going to be bad, unfortunately.
Exactly. They are
And that
not
does.
built for shootouts.
And then I heard, I heard the PK come up. That was hellacious this year. They were terrible on the PK, and that was something that actually kind of used to be their bread and butter. They used to be really strong on the kill, and that tanked this year too. Not to mention
Special
that there were,
teams.
and not to mention that there were one too many times where they would get into penalty trouble late in the game, and then be tired, and they would be just on back-to-back kills, and and have maybe two that were really strong, and then get tired, because that's just kind of what happens when you're playing from behind for so long.
Yeah. Well, and Jenny Hockey is asking us, what about Cam Talbot from New York?
Cam Talbot from the Rangers.
I've heard his name's been floated around a little bit recently. It has been
I'd go for that, but I don't
been a
know
bit of
that New
talk.
York's going to want to give him up. I mean, someone's going to have to succeed Lundqvist at some point. So.
Yeah. A couple of things. I'm going through the tweets here. From Kevin Kurz retweeted this from @FrozenRoyalty. Unless shot clock is wrong, the Kings outshot the Sharks in the third period 15-1, and that was in the 14-18 mark. Wow. Another quote from Todd McClellan on his future. Kurz has quoted him as saying, "Our coaching staff will come under review, but I have to do my own personal review too."
I wonder if that means he's, in other words, reviewing if he wants to still remain in California next season.
Oh, I'm not sure if he were to remain in California. If somebody were to get upset by Winnipeg, if you catch my drift.
Mm.
I mean, that's an interesting quote there. Not to read too much into it, but we have to do our own review ourselves too. I mean,
well, look at it here. Netich is asking about Kari Ramo from Calgary. To me, I don't know that Ramo is a significant upgrade over Stalock. Like I said, the problem is there's always, Stalock is going to have the haters, just like everybody else has the haters. But as we've stated before, I think Shalana has mentioned this as well. Show me the time that Stalock has actually gotten the opportunity to be the man. He hasn't. He actually got less starts this year than he got the prior year, despite what Wilson said in the offseason. I expected, out of 82 games, I expected Stalock to start at least 30. And if you look at it, most goaltenders, despite the whole thing of, I feel like I play better when I get more games. Well, the numbers don't bear that out. When Niemi had the fewest starts, he had his best save percentage. When Nabokov had, I believe, under 60 games, put up his best numbers. So clearly it's I feel better when I'm playing more. No, you don't. The numbers don't bear that out. You're playing better when you're rested and you're fresh. That's what is being proven by the numbers. I just feel like, you know what, give Stalock and Grosnick the chance next season, see what happens. If they completely implode, then you have time to go out and get somebody.
well, it's kind of like in the sense when Navi was holding out and you had Kiprusoff and Toskala in there, you have time. However, you don't have too much time because that season ended up being the last season prior to this one where the Sharks didn't make the playoffs. So it's a fine line on that.
Well, what was really interesting was that the season started off with it seeming like they were like Stalock was maybe going to get a little more play time, and actually Niemi had a pretty decent start to the season, but it still looked like Stalock was going to get a few more starts, and then he got hurt. He didn't look super sharp when he came back, but when Niemi would have a terrible game and have to be pulled, he more than likely was starting that next game. Stalock had a bad game, Niemi, would be the next guy between the pipes. And so I never really felt like Stalock had. I mean, even if he didn't have a game and it was on him as opposed to being on, the defense, and bad turnovers and what have you. I never felt like he got enough of a try, but that bothering me particularly because there was such a strong chance that Niemi wasn't going to be back here next season. So so even when he was still here after the trade deadline, I was like, well, okay, well, why aren't you giving Stalock more of an opportunity so that if Niemi is gone, you have more faith in your goaltending if you're not getting something else back or
when they opened this season, the first 6 games they split it up, and if I remember correctly, after each one of them having 3 games, they had damn near identical numbers. Each one had a shutout. It was like, and then all of a sudden, for some reason, they just went Niemi's way, and I could not figure out for the life of me. And I believe Randy even mentioned something about goaltending today on the game. I wish I could remember exactly what it was, but yeah, I still just wonder if come July 1st, between now and July 1st, if Niemi is not on this team, if he just walks, if Wilson is not able to get one single thing for him, how can Wilson even be here any longer? I mean, that's something so bad. Even Plotner's got to be able to go, okay, that's inexcusable.
It could be of a worse blunder than the whole Campbell Boyle situation, where you essentially give up 3 first-round picks, a prospect, and Matt Carl. You're to just get that one guy to be your bona fide defenseman, to be puck moving and everything. They shouldn't waste so much on a pick unless the guy is super young, proven, and has plenty of potential, which is where I kind of still disagree with, trading for if you have a number 1 overall pick. So, with that, the following graphics could be very graphic to Sharks fans. This is the longest Stanley Cup droughts. These are teams that have the longest 10 years without winning a cup, and the numbers are off a little bit. I think to add 2 to everything, now that I see it. Montreal, I put them there. It's actually 22 years. Montreal is the last Canadian team to win this Stanley Cup, and with 5 Canadian teams going to the playoffs now, there's never been a better chance for that streak to end. The Sharks will sit at 24 years. St. Louis and Toronto will be sitting at 48. I didn't know St. Louis had been that long in it. Buffalo and Vancouver, 45 years now. They're going to be playing without winning a cup. Washington celebrating their 40th year, or 40 years. But I mean, you could see the list go on and on. That one isn't too bad, but this next graphic is. These are the teams that have never played in the Stanley Cup final that are currently in the NHL. You have the 4 expansion teams from the late 90s, early millennium, with Minnesota and Columbus for 14 years, the Atlanta/Winnipeg franchise, 15 years. Nashville was a year before at 16. But you look at the top 2.
Arizona was the prior Winnipeg franchise, right?
Right, which is you see the asterisk and underneath it that the original Winnipeg Jets franchise that moved to Phoenix and then renamed Arizona this year won 3 WHA Avco Cup titles. So basically saying, the oldest team in the league to have never played for a championship, essentially, is the San Jose Sharks at 23 years. Now, granted, the Winnipeg Jets, when they entered the NHL, essentially, they had their team ripped apart, and they had to essentially rebuild to get into the NHL. But that's a
How bizarre yet poetic is it that for me the Sharks came their closest in 2004, and who was the coach on the opposing team that knocked them out?
Daryl Sutter.
And last season when they were so close, and who's the guy? I mean, my God, how poetic is that?
But AJ, and maybe even Shalana, you would know. Every year that we go on, and you think how shocking and how Cinderella the team was, but just think if Garpenlov's crossbar were to go in Game 6 against the Leafs in '94. I mean, if that goes in, year 3, the Sharks are on to the conference final. They played that Vancouver team very well, and you can't tell me that the whole Bay Area would be tuned out with press coverage. I mean, just think if they had made it on to the Stanley Cup Final to eventually probably get swept by the Rangers in '94, but still.
I don't know that they would have gotten swept by the Rangers just because Mark Messier would have been like, who the fuck are these guys?
There would definitely be a different hockey dynamic in the Bay Area, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
But,
absolutely.
Geez.
So I'll give you guys two things you can do to change the Sharks, and then we'll get into the Stanley Cup playoffs talk. If you had 2 wishes, what would you do to fix the Sharks?
Well, I think
defense. Well, no, that's not easy. Not just their blue line. Give Joe Pavelski the C next season. Just put him in that spot already. I know having that graphic on your sweater isn't everything, but if you're going to be building a team around somebody, it should be that guy. And I just think that's just kind of the start of things getting better. I've written about this several times. There's a whole mentality thing with this team, and that's part of you take away scoring droughts, and you take away lack of blue line depth. You get into the fact that this team has this thing, and it's spanned over several seasons where they take their foot off the gas at the when they need to push the hardest. And I think one of the things that did hurt them this season is that they were still going through that lack of captain, lack of leadership, and that whole transition thing. So that's one of my things for next season. You kind of saw it at the beginning of this season, starting to transition, but there wasn't enough. There was not enough change. So it's one of my big changes that I would like.
For me, it's fire Wilson and see about replacing the scouting staff, because look at their history. I mean, yes, some of these guys have found gems where you found a Braun in the 6th round, or you found a Pavelski in the 6th round, or you found I was never a Jason Demers fan, but when you looked at he was taken like 6th or 7th round, at least that worked out. So they've had some luck in those lower rounds. But you look at the top 4 rounds under the Wilson tenure, you had drafted one defenseman that has panned out for you in 10 years. How that is not set off red flags is beyond me. I mean, Petrecki, Wren, Doherty, I mean, the list just goes on, and yeah, a couple moves, Wissert eventually and Carl eventually got you Boyle. Oh, well, you know what? They wouldn't have had Vlasic had they not traded Kiprasov, and in retrospect, I think a lot of people would have preferred to have traded Nabby and kept Kiprasov. But anyway, it comes down to the fact that you've had 10 years and you've drafted one good defenseman on a pick that you traded for, essentially. You traded an asset for. It wasn't a pick that you were going to have just based on where you finished that season. So, yeah, for me, it's Wilson and just replace the front office. And it goes back to the quote that John Thornton said when it was brought up about a culture change. Well, who lays out this culture? It comes from Wilson. It starts at the top. The buck stops with Wilson. You look at the guys that he's had the chance to bring in. Oh, they have a great hockey IQ or blah, blah. Well, you know, every once in a while, you need someone that's going to show up when it matters most. This game meant nothing to LA essentially today, and they still showed up. They played and they quoted Daryl Sutter at one point during the game as, "We're out of the playoffs. We're still going to play like defending champions," and they did. You look at how they came back. And that's just something you haven't seen from the Sharks in a long time.
I agree with all of your guys. I'm going to say two things. Reduce the drama. You didn't need to make a big deal about dropping the C. Name a captain. There's no reason not to.
I love the fact that goes back and forth. If you talk to, say, David Pollock, it's, oh, well, the players just think it's a letter. Doesn't really mean anything. You know, it's just an extra thing to have on your jersey, whatever. And then you talk to, say, Ross McKeon or, Kevin Kurz, and it's a quote-unquote huge distraction in the room. So it's either way. The fact is, if people are talking about it, it's a problem. So
when you have Winnipeg chanting, "Who's your captain?" and then it happens in Ottawa again, it tends to be a distraction. It tends to be
how many needless distractions
over and over again that you don't need to deal with.
It was a distraction that carried on throughout the season. It popped back up. That popped back into the discussion anytime the Sharks, went flat-footed again and lost, to Buffalo or anything. That lack of, I wrote about it earlier in the season, with things getting underway, and after that long road trip that opened up the campaign, when the press goes back into the dressing room post game. For my first two seasons, you always wait and you talk to Joe Thornton. Joe Thornton was always right there. That was who you talked to. That was your captain. That's who kind of laid out kind of the summary of how the team did. And so this season, it was kind of like, okay, well, who's going to be stepping up and talking for these guys? It ended up being Joe Pavelski, and it started to seem like, okay, well, maybe at some point, halfway through the season, they're just, they're going to name him captain, and this is going to go away. And then that didn't happen, and they end up having it's the same discussion was going on. It's still going on right now. We are almost a whole year since the Sharks got knocked out of the playoffs, almost a whole year since Thornton got stripped of his seat, and this is still an issue.
Well, and that's my point, is how it's been over a season. How many needless issues or problems has Wilson created? With the stripping the C, the whole, whatever stupid comments he made at the State of the Sharks, which I also felt was a really dumb time to have that. To me, it's you either have that at the beginning of the season, you have it at the end of the season. You don't do it mid-season. That just seemed really dumb to me. But
you especially don't do it when the team's on a winning streak and trying to climb back into a playoff spot.
Yeah.
The team was playing a home game while this happened. This was right before.
So Nashville.
Yeah, this was right before that the Chicago matinee, before they hit the road for 2 weeks.
Yeah, really.
I remember And I remember going to get coffee in the box and walking by Dave Pollock just typing, frantically at his computer, and then seeing, this transcript come up the next day. And looking at the stuff that Wilson said, and it was like, wow.
And it just seems like
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It just seems like a very thinly veiled way of Wilson trying to get Thornton to want to leave, because that's the only way he can get Thornton to leave with this no-move clause. He gave Thornton all the power with putting that no-move clause in there. So it's, I mean, if Thornton wants to do some sort of a power play, I suppose he potentially could.
No pun intended.
Exactly. But I don't know. Just you look at all this, what Wilson has done over this the last 12 months. It just seems like every decision has been the wrong one, no matter what time. And if it gets to that point, it's kind of like, yeah, you need to go. And I just hope that Plotner realizes this and can get somebody worthwhile in here. Now, how fucking fantastic would it be to replace Doug Wilson with Drew Remenda? That would be awesome.
Oh.
That would be an all-time. That would be the all-time biggest fuck you of fuck yous ever. Actually, the biggest fuck you of fuck you ever would be to replace John Turturro with Drew Remenda, and then let Drew fire Doug Wilson.
You know what's funny? And I should have sent you the link yesterday when I found it. Tim Kawakami has a podcast himself. Apparently, they all start one after we have. And
but
had
great interview with Drew.
Yeah, he had a great interview with Drew, and Drew's still trying to figure out how and why he was fired.
A year later.
Yeah, a year later.
Still doesn't know.
He's fired.
The fact that no one has ever come, and I think I tweeted this earlier today or yesterday, whenever it was, that no one from the Sharks organization has stepped up to the plate and owned the decision. That it's or it's the spin cycle where we felt that it was time to take it in a new direction, and it's like, no, bullshit. You got tired of being called on the carpet for making dumb fucking decisions. You get Baker in there that's going to blow a bit more smoke up people's asses. He's not going to be as critical. Drew was, you listen to the guys. I've had center ice I don't know how many times. I listen to the other guys. And the guys in Phoenix sound like they're just short of a coma. The guys in Dallas, anytime somebody gets brushed by, it's, oh my God, I can't believe that wasn't a 10-minute misconduct, and that guy should be banned from the league. They're huge.
If you want to talk about bad bias, just look at Boston.
Yeah, I mean, huge homers. Drew, the last thing you could call Drew Remenda was a homer.
I agree wholeheartely. I can't see, and of course we're going to we would put it on Turturro or Frank Albin, but I can't see Frank Albin getting rid of Drew. Him and Randy were always tight, so there's no problem there.
And how many awards did those guys win as a broadcasting group?
I think they won at least four Emmys together.
Yeah, so let's get rid of them. Are you? I mean, Jesus Christ.
You know what I think is amazing? That I think it's amazing the fact that it's still a topic. People are still angry.
Yeah, a year later.
The part is that
that's kind of part. I mean, Eric, you said you want no more drama. This is part of it, and it's an off ice thing, which I think is just so interesting. Broadcaster changes for teams all of the time. People are still mad that Drew Remenda isn't in San Jose anymore. It's
absolutely. Do you think would anybody have given a shit if they had replaced Baker with Hedekin and Baker was just moving on?
I think it would have been a little bit more of it would have been a surprise, but I thought people would have gotten over it a little bit quicker than Remenda getting fired.
Absolutely. And nothing against Baker. He's fine. I enjoyed him on radio. I enjoyed him this season. He's good, at least for Sharks fans. but let's call it what it is. And I think we said this before. For me, it's like Baker's a 7 out of 10, and Remenda's 100 out of 10. He's just that good. Just the fact that I mean, oh, okay. We should move on to another topic before my head explodes.
Let's touch up on the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Let's
Go Boston! Go Buffalo!
Yes, if you haven't tuned in, or if you haven't checked anything lately, Ottawa clinched a playoff spot. And it is something remarkable because they had goaltending issues, they had injured defensemen, but their goalie got hot, and they were at 49 points and 8th in the wild card standings on February 6th, I believe someone tweeted it out. And now they are at 99 points and will be the number 3 seed in the playoffs in the Atlantic Division, which means let's put it this way. The East is so mixed up, I'm afraid to put up this graphic right now.
Don't do it. Oh, but breaking news, Troy Grosnick is getting the start tonight in Worcester.
And Worcester needs 1 point to clinch a playoff spot. So, entering games playing right now, and I emphasize that. So if you watch this on replay, these could all be changing. These are your matchups in the East. Montreal, Detroit, Tampa Bay, Ottawa. The one you know for sure is Islanders, Capitals, and then the other one is Rangers, Penguins. Now, I don't have Eastern standings right now, but here's how it plays out. If Pittsburgh wins, they're in, and and Boston is out.
And Boston.
Okay. Pittsburgh has 96 points with 38 ROWs.
Yeah, for Boston to get in, Boston has to win and Pittsburgh has to lose today, right? That's essentially it.
Basically, if Pittsburgh gets a point, I'm trying to figure this out. If Pittsburgh gets 1 point and Boston wins, they both have 97 points and they both have 38 ROWs.
So what's the next tiebreaker? Head to head?
The next is head to head, and I'm not gonna even try to go through that. And it's based off of points, correct?
You know what? Let's just find out in 3 or 4 hours. We'll all know.
Speculation is fun, though.
No. Hold on. Put the graphic back up. Let me see that shit again. I mean, because this is the most likely scenario. I mean, I'm pretty sure the chances of Pittsburgh beating Buffalo are a lot higher than the odds on Boston beating Tampa.
But Buffalo's played well too.
Yeah, when they face the Sharks. So anyway, give me this one.
Scenario in the East too is how you see Montreal and Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay wins, Montreal loses. Tampa Bay steals the Atlantic Division, and we would have the Apprentice versus the Master series, where Stevie Yzerman's Lightning will go up against Ken Holland's Red Wings, and then you have Montreal Ottawa, which a couple years ago was a phenomenal, surprising series.
Yeah, I'm looking at this at your graphic right now, and I'm just gonna say, I don't know why this just jumped at me. But I'm just going to go out on a limb and say the second round will be Canada versus New York.
Which would be a very interesting series. Wouldn't it be something if it was Rangers-Islanders in the Eastern Conference Final?
No, well, not for that would suck for NBC and television and everything. But I could totally see the second round being Montreal versus the Rangers, Ottawa versus the Islanders, and it's just the winner of the Eastern Division, I believe, is either going to come from New York or Canada.
All right, so that's in the East.
Montreal, Ottawa would just be bomb too.
Yep.
I'd love to see that.
And in the West, again, this is as of right now because there are plenty of games to play. St. Louis, with their victory over Minnesota, at the moment has 109, has 109 points. I'm sorry, yes, 109 points.
Get your shit together,
Oh,
Eric.
and Anaheim has 107. I believe if Anaheim were to win, they would leapfrog back because Anaheim would have more regulation overtime wins. Okay, so basically, right now it's Anaheim, Minnesota, which would be a rematch of the 2003 Western Conference Cinderella final. It would be also St. Louis over against Winnipeg, which I still think Winnipeg is going to be the dark horse in the West. The one series we know for sure is Vancouver and Calgary.
Can't wait for that one.
Oh, that one's going to be phenomenal.
That's still my favorite matchup. That's still the one that I'm the most excited to watch.
Right. And if Chicago were to lose, well, I take that back. Maybe it's because if Minnesota lost completely, they got 100. Yeah, okay, so I take that back. So that one is set. So there are two series actually set because Minnesota lost today. Nashville against Chicago. So the bottom two are for sure. So Vancouver, Calgary, and Nashville, Chicago.
And those are the two that are most worthwhile in that in the Western Conference. Nedich, Chester Chivo just tweeted, Boston leads the series over Pittsburgh 2-1 and earned 5 points in that series. So it looks as if Boston has that third tiebreaker.
It has the third tiebreaker. So basically for Boston, they would just need to pretty much match.
Just Pittsburgh can only get 1 point today, and Boston has to win.
Right. So if Pittsburgh wins out, it's over.
Let's go, Buffalo!
And wouldn't that be interesting if Crosby and the Pens were out? What on earth will NBC and Pierre Maguire do?
Yes. Well, here's an interesting thing that was kind of broached on Twitter. What if this, when we say this is, and okay, oh, you know what, Eric? Go ahead, bring down your graphic and whip out your tinfoil hat. What if this is all part of the plan and the Sharks are essentially tanking on purpose to pull a major league, to go to Portland or Seattle or Las Vegas or wherever?
Who in the world would think of such a crazy idea? I mean, has always been a thought since I loved that movie. I didn't know,
could you imagine that is the plan that Plotner has to move into a brand new building? Because as was stated in the Remenda interview with Kawakwami, the TV deal is absolute horse shit. They're playing in one of the... It's funny that I always hear people go, oh, dear God, the Shark Tank is one of the oldest buildings in the league. It feels like they just finished it yesterday. I mean, I know it's 22 years old, but it doesn't feel old when you're in it. It's the problem.
There's nothing wrong with it.
There's nothing wrong with it for the fans. It has fantastic sight lines. I mean, there are literally 2 bad seats in that house. I know where both of them are. Other than that, the problem is they don't have enough corporate boxes. They don't have the Shark Tank was completed just before Staples and the wall of corporate suites. I mean, look at Levi's, for Christ's sake. Half one side of Levi's is nothing but corporate luxury suites.
Rink was like that too, where one side was all corporate suites and the other side was fans.
Yeah, so maybe it's a case of they say we want a new building because we want that Silicon Valley dollar or whatever with the corporate thing, and fuck the regular fans that have supported us for 20+ years. We want that corporate dollar, or we can just move to a place like Vegas and who wouldn't want to say maybe be in Vegas or Portland and be the big fish in the small pond versus being the number 6 fish in the really big pond that they're here now?
It's a thought, and that's why I've always mentioned the conspiracy theory per se is the Sharks don't get any love from the media at all. I mean, the second the Warriors started becoming good, all of a sudden, you know, blue and gold came supreme. And sure, maybe part of it's mainly from the location of everything, but it wouldn't surprise me. And we all know how excited Bettman is to go to Vegas. I mean, you don't see him telling people in Quebec City or prospective owners in Quebec City to have a season ticket drive. You don't see him talking to the 2 Seattle people who are interested in running a team to have a ticket drive, or even the roundabout place, Kansas City, have a season ticket drive. Which, mind the way, Kansas City is the one rink that's ready to go right now. So if Plattner were to pull a Baltimore Colt to Indy thing with the Mayflower trucks, Kansas City would be the only place for them to go to. And
another poetic thing of being that Kansas City was one of wasn't that like the original minor league affiliate city for the Sharks at the Blades?
Right, the Kansas City Blades were the IHL minor league team affiliate.
How poetic! And I can't see it being Seattle, because from what I've been reading, Seattle's much more on fire about replacing the Supersonics than getting a hockey team.
They would rather have the Supersonics come back than.
That's been in the works for a while now too. They've been trying to get a hoop.
Whenever a team would be up for relocation, it was always talking about Seattle. The biggest scare was when the Sacramento Kings were on the verge. They didn't get their deal done in Anaheim, and then all of a sudden they're going to overbid. Or even, what was it? Ballmer, I think, was the one that was trying to get the Warriors to Seattle. They would play a couple of years at Key Arena and then call it home. The problem in Seattle is that the temporary rink would be set up like America West, or for that matter, the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, where the Islanders will home for 20 years starting next season. It's not suitable for hockey, and it doesn't have that much corporate suites. And for Seattle, there's no guaranteed deal. I would think that once the season ticket drive for the Vegas is over and done with, Bettman's going to have to go back to his board of directors and say, hey, they have 10,000 or so season tickets deposits ready to go for a team. What are we going to do? There's no way they can go with just one expansion team. They would have to go with 2.
Or you, see, I just think the expansion
unless Florida were to go to the West and go to Seattle, or go to Kansas City.
Yeah, I can see now that I can see happening. I can see Florida being relocated, or somebody comes to the West and Florida goes up to Quebec or whatever. But
or for that matter, Arizona, who's lost already $33 million,
goes to Las Vegas.
Goes to Las Vegas themselves. And personally, that's starting to be the comparison here. Is Tatora has said that the Sharks lost $15 million last year. They went under the cap to maybe break even from that this year. I mean, that's the big catch. I don't know.
Oh man, we have to go to the tweets.
Yes, let's go to the tweets.
Daryl Martin, our King Shark guy, says, remember in the interview with Kyle Kwame, you mentioned that, yes, the Sharks TV deal is bad, and what's worse, Comcast is not about to let them out of it, and it runs for like another, I think, 12 years or something. I mean, it's ridiculous.
It was like a 15-year deal that then President Greg Jameson, that was one of his last things as president of the team. You know, it was during the bad time of the economy. They wanted to have as like up to 76 games on the channel. What's interesting though is how Mark Purdy reported this once we started getting the bearer bad news of everything. Was Bettman has joined in this talk to get the better TV deal. Why? Because Comcast also owns NBC and NBC Sports Network, to try to get a better deal out of that, because it's absolutely going to kill the Sharks. It's part of the reason why season tickets are going up. I would also venture to guess as to, in the overall business, why the Worcester Sharks are becoming the San Jose Barracuda next year, to add more revenue into the bottom dollar for Shark Sports and Entertainment.
And wouldn't it be interesting to see if the Barracuda move was predicated upon the Sharks relocating to a different city? That this is what we were getting in return to replace the team.
Well, the Worcester isn't the only team that's moving, though.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying.
It's not just about the issue.
No, I just thought it would be funny.
Let's also let it be known that Winnipeg is moving their AHL team to play at MTS Center next season as well. So you're going to have two teams that are going to be playing in the same barn in the NHL and the AHL.
Well, regarding SAP Center on Twitter, Jenny Hockey says, the tank can't be that bad. Nassau has been awful for years. I've never been there, but I've heard the stories, but the tank is nice.
See you later. Bye.
Oh, hello. Okay, see ya.
Bye.
Stay away from the Shark Arenas. And then you have the issue with, or Eric is saying, people complain about the TV camera positions at SAP Center. I don't understand what that's about. Like, maybe it's people that work the games. They complain about where they need to be, or what. I don't understand that. When I watch the games, I enjoy that. You know, the game that I don't care for, or the two arenas that I really seem to have a problem with, are Dallas and Calgary. Is it just me, or their cameras like a lot lower? I like them to be a bit more high, and it seems, especially Dallas, the cameras seem like they're about 20 feet lower than
Dallas. A funky position. Watching the games that are in Dallas, it does seem like they're. It does seem like their position kind of funny. I could be wrong. My thing with SAP is they don't have a whole lot of seating up top for the press. I'd like that a bit more. And for there to be coffee out for longer. That would be nice.
That would be nice. But, well, the other thing, though, is, well, there probably would be a little bit more room up there had they not moved the TV and radio guys from, the front row of 215 into the upper decks. They're going to squeeze those guys in there somewhere.
And see, the other thing too.
The TV guys have their own little sections up there.
Yeah, but that space would be freed up if they hadn't have been relocated.
Oh no. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, Daryl Martin, King Shark 49 with a perfect analogy for the tank. Says if Plattner hates San Jose and SAP Center so much, that he needs to take the goddamn company's name off the building. I like that. Because to me, I don't give a shit what anybody... They can change the name of that place 20,000 times. It's always going to be one of two things to me. The Shark Tank or the San Jose Arena. That's it. That's what it started off as, was the San Jose Arena. That's what I love the idea of how many different names did we see? There was 3Com Park, then there was Monster Park, then it was what was it? It was like Bill Walsh Field at 3Com Park on Candlestick Point or some bullshit like that. Everybody called it the Stick. Nobody calls Oracle very often. I mean, I never hear that. It was Network Associates. It was,
Coliseum.
yeah, or you just say it's in Oakland. You know it's at one of those two places, the stadium or the arena. It doesn't matter. You just say it's in Oakland. The Concord Pavilion. Anytime a band is ever that I'm going to Concord, where are they at? They're in Concord. They're at
Concord Pavilion.
Yeah.
Well, you can't. Well, I would say, and also, how many places are called the Sleep Train Pavilion or whatever?
Yeah, there's like 5 of them.
Two, actually.
Yeah, there's like
You had
5.
the one in Concord.
And there's one in like Anaheim or Irvine or something.
There was that one, and then at one point, the then Arco Arena was named Sleep Train Arena.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's just...
No, I've never in my life been like, oh yeah, you know, I've seen, you know, because I've seen Iron Maiden twice there. I've never been like, yeah, I saw them at Sleep Train Arena. Give me a break.
Exactly. Yeah, I get a kick out of it. And I still a lot of time I refer to AT&T as Pac Bell. You know, I just forget sometimes, and I'm like, well, that's what it opened up as. That's what I go with. So
Brought to you by Pucknology After Dark.
Before we return to the tweets, I want to give a shout out. Tonight is the last game in Stockton Thunder history. They were around for 10 years when Stockton Arena opened up. They are headed to Adirondack, where the ECHL Thunder will remain the same. Pretty much same logo, added red for the Flames. Of course, the Stockton Heat. Wow, what an original name there. Will replace the Thunder as a Calgary Flames affiliate next year. So a huge nod to Stockton. I think they really showed up, and I think they had the best record in the ECHL for a number of years. Even with the Fresno Falcons folding, you saw the classic rivalry between Stockton and the San Francisco Bulls for a year and a half. Heck, even the Thunder management had a special Bulls night last season when the Bulls folded up shop. So I don't know if a lot of them are headed to Adirondack with the Thunder or they're staying with the Heat, but a lot of kudos to the Stockton Thunder. Farewell. Thank you for 10 great seasons being the minor league affiliate for a number of teams, including the Sharks. So give them that. We'll go back to the tweets.
Can't wait to go back to hating Stockton.
Yes, exactly.
Once they're affiliated with Calgary.
They just have the prettiest barn out there, though. That play space is just gorgeous.
Oh my gosh, it's like a mini Staples Center, really.
It's so pretty. That and then the little ballpark right next to it where the Ports play.
Right.
Or both just. I mean, just the upkeep is just incredible. It's.
I gotta make it out to a game next season when the Barracuda takes on the Heat.
Yeah.
Little road trip.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. So Diane DS Gaimon on Twitter has McCullen changed his style of coaching over the years. Remember when he came to the Sharks, he was known as the power play guy for Detroit. That's how Detroit had such success.
Well, it doesn't seem to be working too much now, does it?
Our power plays balls.
From the peanut gal.
This opinion brought to you by vodka.
Amy, you need to come in here.
Hold on, please.
Oh my gosh.
This opinion brought to you by vodka.
Yes. Liam, and this is Liam from Nova Scotia. He's a good friend of mine. He's a Ducks fan. He says, can't lie, I'm listening on Pucknology After Dark. I have no reason to, but I enjoy it, even though I'm a Ducks fan from Nova Scotia. One thing I recall about the Sharks Ducks in 2009 was a remarkably classy phone call I got at the end of the series. That was from me, of course. Chester Chivo, Stalock deserves an opportunity to win the starting job. I agree.
And he did last September as well.
Mm-hmm. Liam again says, don't want to be harsh, but perhaps SJ should stop trading away 2 or 3 picks to move up and take an overrated prospect. We're looking at you, Devin Setaguchi, Anže Kopitar. Daryl, if Hasso refuses to fire DW and ignores the fan base again, nothing else will matter for the Sharks. The franchise is in trouble. Daryl also mentioned in the TK interview that Remenda mentioned the Sharks TV deal was bad. Oh, we already mentioned that. Let's see here. Agreed. Calgary and Dallas's cameras are way too low. And Chester Chiva makes a good point too, because I was just looking up tickets for comedian Angela Johnson in May. There's the Wells Fargo Center in Santa Rosa, which is essentially a concert hall, and of course the Wells Fargo Center where the Flyers play.
Honey, what did your finger do like this?
Just one.
Why
Just
you
one.
have no boyfriend? Yeah, just one now. Just one now. That's
Oh,
what,
yeah.
honey, that's why you had no boyfriend.
So I'm bringing in Amy.
Hello.
You know, many of her times as Puckgal 14. When
Or
she
Sharkarita white girl wasted.
Hey, I have to during Shark games when they play like shit.
Yeah, that Dallas game was. Yeah, you needed a couple doubles on that one.
yeah,
I had a couple doubles.
and she
Oh,
wasn't
believe me,
bad.
we knew.
What were you saying? Oh, our power play 6 balls.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's not the only one. She's still learning. I'm still getting her mind
All right,
molded
bye.
into hockey. So, all right, thank you for your comments. So as we pretty much wrap it up, I'll give you final thoughts before I have a list of thank yous to get to. So, Shalana, go ahead and go first.
It's going to be a very long and with or without a ton of moves, it's going to be a very long and interesting offseason. It's going to be very, very interesting. There's going to be it won't hurt the same as last offseason. I don't think it'll be different, but I think big changes are coming. So we're going to have a lot to talk about down the stretch.
Yeah.
And AJ, for you?
Well, just tweeted out the Sharks have ended the season with 22 fewer points than they had last season. So that was a really big step back, Doug. So you have your work cut out for you if you're still here. But for me, one of the things I would like to see, but I know that we won't, I would love to see either Wilson or McClellan, some sort for CSN to have, kind of a roundtable thing on Yahoo Sports Talk Live this week or something, but something to address how things imploded, what steps are going to be taken in the future, but we know that that'll never happen. So it's just between now and then, enjoy the playoffs, enjoy the fact that there's 5 Canadian teams in the playoffs, which can't remember the last time that happened. So
Let's quickly get to that. Shalana, will go with you first. Your cup final prediction and who's holding the cup.
Oh, God. Ugh. I don't know. I haven't even thought that far. Jeez.
You hold that thought, and I'll go to AJ. AJ, who do you say?
New York over Chicago.
You say New York over who?
The Rangers over the Blackhawks.
Rangers over the Blackhawks. I'm going to go. I'm going to be slightly crazy, but like I mentioned before on Thursday night, I think it's 1994 all over again when the team is entering essentially their inaugural playoffs, and where I think every team in the West is vulnerable. I'm going to say the Winnipeg Jets will play in the Stanley Cup Final, and they will lose.
You cannot get off that Winnipeg bandwagon,
I'm gonna go crazy here. I'm gonna say they lose the Stanley Cup Final to the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Oh, please bet me on that, please.
More realistic. I'm gonna say it's gonna be That'd be a fun series too. Chicago over Montreal. But and any of my Winnipeg Jets followers are following me. I need that whiteout shirt. Let me know. I will PayPal whatever gear I can get from you guys. Shalane, have you thought of a cup prediction?
Let's go New York over Calgary.
Which New York?
Oh, that would be fun to watch.
Rangers.
You're going Rangers.
I think Rangers Flames would be good.
Rangers Flames would be really good.
That would be intense. I don't see Calgary hasn't slowed down the entire season. Give them a ton of credit. I know I've said that before. I'd like to see them make a nice run.
That would be fantastic.
I don't think Chicago's as strong this season. I don't think they're gonna go too deep into the playoffs. So yeah, that's my pick.
I like that. I like that pick a lot. 20 and oh my god! And if Calgary
let's think, guys,
to win, oof, they'd be rubbing it all over Vancouver's face.
It would be insane.
But
yeah, what? Go ahead.
I was gonna say, think about it. That's actually doable. Calgary beats Vancouver. Let's say Winnipeg upsets Anaheim, or Minnesota upsets Anaheim. They beat the winner of that series. They're in the conference final. If Nashville's in the conference final too, boy howdy, they could sneak right into it, and they have the confidence. And heck, this is completely without their captain. They have no captain too, and they're doing it this well. Sharks.
Hold on though. How awesome would it be? Just for shits and giggles, let's just say how awesome it would be if the Final Four, if your Western Conference was Calgary versus Winnipeg, and the one in the East is Montreal versus Ottawa. Holy crap! And all Canada, the NBC would hyperventilate at that point because the U.S. ratings would plummet.
Well, not necessarily. I think, it probably will plummet, but I think those diehard fans, like all of us.
If the West was Nashville versus Calgary,
people that really like hockey though will dig because those are.
But they're gonna watch that. They're gonna watch no matter what.
And here's the thing, though. Here's the big question: does NBC get cheap and then put on the Hockey Night in Canada analysts instead of flying their guys up there?
I would take that. I would take that in a heart. Any way that I don't have to listen to Doc Emmerich is a good day.
Doc's not that bad.
He's fucking awful, dude. He's awful.
I don't dislike Doc.
Rebound off the shot!
I've said it before, I'll say it again. To this day, I have never seen anybody be able to waffle or knife or never have I seen somebody be able to do that to one of these things. I've seen these passed several times. I've seen them passed and shot, but I've never seen one of them waffled or knifed or rifled or any of that. And to scream at me, and you don't need to scream at me. You want to know the gold standard of play-by-play? Go listen to a Canadian broadcast. Jim Hewson typically will do Toronto games. He is the gold standard.
He worked with Randy at a Vancouver station up there. Anyways, that looks lovely. You want to model it for us, Amy?
No.
Okay. Anyways, we have to wrap this up.
One final thought.
One final thought. Go ahead.
All the off-season changes that we're going to be seeing between now and October for the 25th anniversary, the 25th season of the Sharks, is going to be really, really good, or it's going to be really bad.
It's going to be really, really scary. Let's put it that way. So with that, I will tweet out this survey that we wanted to let you guys in on. So those who have watched us, let us know what you think, how we're doing, what we can improve on next season. I mean, tweet us that. I'll put out the survey link once we go off the air. With that, I want to personally say thank you to everyone that I've gotten into with knowing for this whole season. I mean, the Sharks fam on Twitter is probably the best and most unique, tolerable, crazy, pain in the butt families I've ever been a part of. There is so much fun with you guys. You guys make the games much more enjoyable. It's great to see familiar faces, whether it's tweet ups or at the game. Gentry would tell you he gets a kick out of every time that we walk um, out of San Pedro Square for games. He says it averages maybe a minute before I run into somebody at the games. But thank you to the fans for our show. Thank you to all the fans who follow this game that we love, the game of hockey, the Sharks fans. Most notably, let's talk about the TV staff. Randy Hahn, best in the business. Biggs, great first season, in my opinion, on the TV side. Hands down, Brody, we freaking love you like nothing else. You are our hero, not quite bromance like Gentry is to Dan Boyle, but, that's kind of debatable. On the radio side, Ruzanowski, great job as always. I have to put this picture up even though we already talked about Brody. There we go. When he made his Pucknology After Dark debut, he was the one who found all the sound effects and all the little costume changes. Brody with his non-playoff beard. Radio side, Dan Ruzanowski, Brett Hedican, great job in the first season. I'll see you at Maria Maria. Also, the guys behind the staff, Uncle Darren Stevens, John Bonacera, Casey Pratt, trying to think of everybody at Comcast and KFox. The Sharks PR team, Ben Guerrero, Jason Plank, the former guy who would start doing, who started Fear the Fin. These guys were great to me and the singing series and everything.
If I had a lighter, I would hold it right now.
We would, or the actual zip code.
now.
I mean, and everybody that's associated with the team, we thank you. It's going to be a crazy 5.5 months, but actually, I take that back. It'll be 4.75 months before we start getting together for Captain's Ice practices, which are always fun and always a good excuse to freeze our butts off in 95-degree weather. So, many of you, I will see you at the equipment sale. We will be back.
We'll find an opportunity to do a couple more.
Yeah, we'll be back for playoffs. We'll jump in every now and then. We'll definitely get together before the draft. We will talk about free agent frenzy once Doug decides not to do anything. And we will get together for sure when training camp starts with the entire staff. AJ, you've been phenomenal. We've always thought about doing this for years. We finally got to do it. I can't wait for next season when we actually get all our crap together. Chris, he's been our technical guy. He's the one who actually figured out how to do the YouTube setup. Gentry, he's been what we call each other Notch Bros because we pretty much would eat nachos and watch the game. He's been my partner in crime for over 6 years for Sharks games. I would say my mom, she's great. I would say Amy, who loves me like crazy and is telling me to hurry the hell up.
Yeah, fuck, dude. I gotta go, man. Let's move it along, would you?
So until at least the draft, we will definitely see you during the summer. Keep it real. Keep it fresh. Keep it real fresh. Go Sharks, and now go Barracuda.
Go Rangers.
Go Jets. Bye-bye.